Janet Van Pelt. I am the founder and CEO of dualenroll.com. We've been doing this for,
I guess, coming up on 4 years now. We're up to about 20 colleges and universities who are using our software. So I want to just tell you a little bit about us and then some of the interesting things that some of those colleges have come up with to do with dualenroll.com. I was telling somebody this morning that all of the good ideas come from the colleges. You know, we are the software people. We understand software. The colleges really give us the functionality ideas. So I'm going to start by telling you guys something that you already know, which is that managing a dual enrollment program is pretty darn difficult. And there's some really unique things that you guys have to deal with that not everybody in your college probably fully understands. Your student system was not designed for high school students. It was designed for people who are seeking full-time enrollment in college, and so you're fighting a constant battle there. And oh, by the way, they are, brittle, old technology, and so anytime you try to deviate from the middle of the road, you've got a challenge there. You have all sorts of unique things you need to do, like parent permissions and high school permissions and updating transcripts every semester as opposed to getting a final transcript. You're dealing with high school instructors, so they're not employees of the college, and they're not located physically close to you, and so that can always be difficult. You have to prove to people like accreditors and faculty members that you really do have a handle on the quality of your courses, and you need to report on all of that, and the fact that your student system doesn't really support you very well doesn't make any of that easier either. So it all just screams out for a system that will actually assist you with this. So what have you done in the past, right? You get a little bit creative. I lived in Georgia for a few years, and so I really relate to this particular picture. And I was chatting with, apparently Northern Michigan also has a little bit of a redneck reputation. Some of the ladies from Northern Michigan last night were telling me they have actually seen people do this. I have only seen pictures. This I can totally picture myself. I totally picture myself in the hotel room. So creative workarounds will only go so far. So sometimes you have to cut some corners, and that doesn't really go so well either as a general rule. And you just find yourself thinking, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so we think that there is, and we think that that way is dualenroll.com. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about us first, because anytime you as a college buy software, you are really going into a partnership that you need to be a long-term partnership, and so you need to sort of understand who is going to be supporting you for the duration. We build commercial quality software. All of the people in our company have a software background. We build it from the ground up. It is very scalable, reliable software. It's not a plug-in to software that somebody else built, so that we don't really control very much of the application. That's a pretty important thing. If you want the longer version, come by the table and I can explain to you why that matters. And then we work with educators who tell us, we really would like for it to do this. I was just talking to Heather from Yavapai this morning, and we're going to sit down and scope out another new feature that they would like to see in the system as far as adding some functionality around surveys. And that's how almost everything that we do gets done. One of our colleges comes to us and says, we love the system, could it also do this? And we say, well, yeah, it probably could. Tell us how you'd like for that to work, and then it becomes a general feature. We have dedicated employees. There are 6 full-time employees for our company. We aren't people who have full-time day jobs that are doing this on the side. If you go to our LinkedIn profiles, this is all of our jobs. We don't, dualenroll.com, Course Made, which is the name of the company, is what you will see on our LinkedIn profiles. And we really do approach it as a partnership, not just a, what can we do to get you to write us a check? So part of the way that we do that is we have an annual subscription model, which means that if you don't like the system, you're going to stop paying us. And so we have a very vested interest in making sure that we are giving you great support and that you are really having the experience and getting the benefit out of the system that you wanted to get, as opposed to saying, give us a bunch of money up front, and then, whether it works for you or doesn't work for you, we've already cashed the check. We also have a really strong philosophy about not asking for money over and over and over. And I know that that's a little bit unique in the software world, the higher education world. We don't say, everything is included in the system. So the software, support, training, report writing, all of that, we literally ask you for money once a year. And that is the only time we will ever ask you for money. And then we have a complete solution, and I think you'll get a sense for that. But we also understand that if you try to do, you can't boil the ocean, right? And so we're very focused on doing things that add high value for our customers, but we aren't trying to be a CRM system. We're not trying to be your recruiting tool, because there are other systems that are built to do that and will do it much better. We're really focused on this particular need for your college. Those total program management, online registration, getting new instructors on board, making sure that they have credentials to teach college, and then managing them once they have been accepted as instructors for your college, doing the course reviews so that once you know somebody is able to teach college at all, making sure that they've worked with a faculty member and that the course quality has been ensured for that particular course, and then all of the reporting and analytics on the back end. So if you are interested in the NACEP accreditation process, it's a great tool for that, because we give you a system that provides much of what you need for that process in a really automated way. If you're not quite ready for that yet, we also have a lot of schools who say, we're a few years away from being able to do the NACEP process, but we need something. And so this gives them a way to document their course quality and the processes that they've gone through as they are still kind of heading in the direction of accreditation. Just a few other things to know. It's fully configurable. We never say it's custom. You do not want custom software, because custom software means that every single customer is a one-off for that vendor, and it's impossible to support over time. You want configurable software, which means that it is built from the ground up to be able to support the choices that you need to make, but those are embedded in the system, not customized on top of the system. It's cloud-based, so you don't have to install anything, you don't have to maintain anything, you don't have to worry about disaster recovery, you don't have to buy a server. As long as you can get on the internet, you can use the system. We have students who register on smartphones, tablets, and it's very secure. We use the same environment that the CIA and the Department of Defense use, so that usually sets people's minds to use pretty easily. And then it's a dynamic workflow engine. And what we mean by that is that the system actually makes decisions along the way. We set up the business rules for you on the front end, and then it looks at each registration or each course review, and based on the student, the high school, the instructor, the department even, it guides that process through based on the specific requirements for that, as opposed to just sort of being a generic thing where you put in data and look at data, and that's really kind of all it does. And we do, I just clicked past it, but we do integrated text and email messaging just embedded in the solution. And again, you tell us we want those emails to go out every 3 days, or we want the text messages to go when something is 2 days past due, and we just set it up around those parameters. So I'm going to show you, I'm just going to do a time check. Yep. So I'm going to show you a few, I decided not to do a demo because it just gets to be a little bit much. I'm going to just show you a few of the things that are kind of unique about the system to whet your interest, and then we'll talk about what some specific colleges are doing. So we have a lot of different views built into the system to make it really functional for no matter what it is that you're trying to do. This is the high school student view. So as a counselor, I come in here, I see all of my students who are in the process of enrolling. I can see where they are in the process. If I'm supposed to be doing something for them, they have a big yellow highlight. So the counselors always have a very clear indication of what they need to be doing to keep their students moving. If I don't have a yellow highlight, I can still tell where the student is in the process and what the remaining steps are. So this is pretty functional and pretty handy. The college has a similar view to this. But if you're interested in knowing who all is waiting for approval or who do I need to provide transcripts for, then we give you this step view. And the step view is also really interesting and helpful, but the really good thing about the step view is that if you just click on one of those steps, it takes you into a batch mode. And so rather than having to go into each student and approve each student, I can just go into batch mode and I can approve 30 students at the same time if I need to, or I can say, these 10 I know for sure, these 5 I need to go look something up, so I'm going to hold off on them. No way in hell this kid should be in dual enrollment, right? So he's a no right off the bat. And high schools, I will tell you, love this. It saves them so much time. They just rave about that particular feature. The other thing we hear a lot, or used to hear a lot, is that it's really hard for students to find their courses. And especially if you have students who take courses on campus, as well as courses in their high school, or you let them take online courses. You know, never ask a high school student to type in a CRM. Let's just start there. It's a recipe for disaster. So we make it really easy for them to pick their courses. This is what we call our course finder. And what you'll see is that it's a multivariable course search. We export this information out of your student system, so nobody has to sit down and key all this in. It just happens automatically in the background, the bowels of the technology, which is not where I live either. But the people who know these things make it work. And it's a pretty simple thing to do. But you'll see, so I can search by keyword if I want to take an English course. If I don't have a card, I can say show me only courses that are taught in my high school. If I really want to come on campus because I'm a senior and I want to get a sense for college, I can say show me courses that are taught at a particular campus. I think I have examples of this actually. Yeah, so show me only courses in my high school because I don't have a card, so I only want to see the courses that are in my high school. I'm a senior, I really want to come on campus. This is the campus that happens to be closest to me, and my schedule is such that I can come to campus on Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And boom, you see only courses that have at least one section that meets based on all these criteria. So literally in seconds, students can filter down through all of the many course offerings that you might have for them to the ones that very specifically meet their requirements. And then all they do to register is click on that link. So they don't need a CRN number. If there are multiple sections that meet their criteria, we'll show them all the sections. They can pick which section they want, and that's it. They're done. Another bottleneck, and I always get a lot of nods about this, is parent permissions and payment. And so we decided that we would fix that too. So the parent permission process is completely automated. The students give us their parents' email at the beginning of the process. As they register for a course, the parents get an email. It looks kind of like this, although it would be branded with your logo and specific to your college, obviously. All they do is click on this link, and they come into this screen, and you'll see that I'm posting from the projector. You'll see that they have the ability to click on the link and see the actual permission form. They can print it out if they want to copy for their records. They type in their name here, they'll sign the permission form electronically. And then if they're going to pay for the course, now if this was a course that was going to be paid by the school district, they wouldn't get a payment request, they would only get the permission. If it's a course that's supposed to be paid by the student, we can, it's kind of covered up, they can pay by credit card, they can pay by debit directly to their bank account. If you allow them to rent an account with your business office or set up a payment plan, then we just set those up as options as well. One of the other things that's interesting is that at this point, we don't actually charge the credit card because the student hasn't been sent to the student system yet. So, maybe you're going to look at their registration and say they don't meet the requirements, or maybe they don't meet the prerequisites and so the registration is going to kick out. So we collect all the credit card information, we authorize the card, so we show that it's a valid card and that there's enough money on the card to cover the course. And then we hold that authorization until we get a confirmation back from your student system that the student has been registered. And then we charge the card. So we know that we're going to collect the money because the card is pre-authorized, but you don't get into a situation where you charge somebody's card and then they get kicked out because they don't meet a prerequisite, and then you got to go back and try to refund that money for them. So now the part that you guys will probably like the best. Some of the specific things that our customers are doing with the system that we thought were especially innovative or creative. So CWI has been using us for course reviews for a long time. This is their process. It's a very I think of it as a long, skinny process. They have lots of steps that are limited to a couple of people. So lots of back and forth between the faculty member, reviewer, liaison, people use different terminology, and the high school instructor. So this is the process that we have built for them. This is what they did before. I'll just give you a minute to absorb that, and then I will point out to you that that is only one of the 3 spreadsheets that they're using to manage their process. This is what they have now. And so what you'll see is that they have all the views, so they can view by instructor, they can view by course, they can view by high school. They have a complete detail of every course review that has taken place, that is happening for them. And we initiate all these steps. So when a new course review is started, we send an email to the faculty member, we send an email to the high school instructor and say, you guys need to get together. The first step is to have a phone conversation and go through the requirements of teaching the course. Once that's done, the faculty member uploads, they have a form that they fill out, they upload that form, and then immediately we kick off the next step, which is that the high school instructor needs to provide a syllabus. So they get an email and a text message saying, okay, now you need to upload a syllabus so that the college can review the syllabus that you want to teach the course from. So the entire thing just happens automatically, and as soon as one step is done, the next step automatically kicks off, and the participants are notified without you having to do anything. You can see always where the process stands, and if things get stuck, we can send out reminders again to the faculty member that this high school instructor is waiting on feedback for you. You need to get back with them.
Yeah. Does this do? I don't know if maybe you're getting to it, but does it do anything about prereqs? Does it say, hey, by the way, you need to turn in test scores?
Yes, we handle all of that. That's more on the registration side, and I can show it to you at the table later on. I just tried to kind of cherry pick a little bit. One of the challenges with the system is that it does so many things that you can't possibly cover them all in 40 minutes. But the other thing that they have at the end of the process is for each instructor and faculty member and course, they have a complete documentation of the entire process that the college went through to make sure that that course was being taught to the same standards as it would have been taught on campus. So now just imagine when you're getting ready for your accreditor review, being able to just pull this up on a screen. You have every single document that's been created along the way. It just makes that whole process just night and day difference. And I'm probably overselling that because you guys are all nodding, you get that already.
So when you say that that's the repository for all the documents that were submitted?
Right, all the documents are attached to that course review. Now, if you have a different document management system, we can also make sure that all those documents go into your document management system. But what this gives you is just sort of one central place where it's easy to kind of get to everything.
And how much can you hold on your system?
Infinite. It's the beauty of the cloud. You just add more storage. And so this is, I won't go into the same detail, but this is the process for Portland. And so whereas Idaho has this long, skinny process, Portland has a tall process. So they only have a few steps, but they have lots of people who need to be involved in those steps. And so we can just as easily configure the system to support that kind of a process as we can for Idaho. And they're really kind of polar opposites in terms of the requirements at each college. So it is completely configurable based on how you do things individually. Another thing we see fairly often is scholarships. So one of our colleges, LaRoche College, has a program where the high schools have the ability to nominate students. I think it's a need-based scholarship. So if a student is registering for dual enrollment, all they do, we add this step for them. They click that nominate for scholarship button when they approve that student. And then based on them checking that box, the student then gets a link to apply for the scholarship, complete the scholarship. And then once they do that, it goes to the college, and the college decides whether they're going to award that scholarship to that student. So again, this used to be an enormously manual process for them that now is just completely automated based on using the system. While the state has something a little different, They, instead of having kind of one main scholarship program, they have about a dozen little scholarship programs. So rather than trying to build all that in, what they wanted was the ability to just go in and adjust what the student was going to pay based on any scholarship that they might have gotten. And so that's what you'll see that's what we've given them there. So they can go in and apply scholarships kind of on an as-student basis. Last thing is, this is a little bit less of a creative use case or whatever, but one of the real advantages of the system is if you have geographic dispersion between your office or your campus and your high schools. So Central Christian of Kansas, they serve a lot of Christian high schools. That kind of makes sense. And so they have an incredibly wide geographic area that they are serving. And when they were relying on U.S. mail, and then you get the forms in, and they're only half completed, and then you have to send them back. I mean, I see knowing nods. So they love it's now all completely electronic, completely automated, and a process that used to take them months to complete is now done in a couple of weeks. All right, last thing, residency forms. I show this less because a high percentage of you will have residency forms, and more just because it's another example of how we can set up the system to meet something that's maybe a somewhat unusual requirement that you have in your particular college. And so Jamestown has a kind of a funky residency form requirement. They have to have the actual paper form, and it has to be notarized before they can accept it. So you think, well, how are you going to automate that? So what we did for them is we created a link so that the parents get the form automatically, as opposed to them having to kind of call the college or fill it out. It's all pre-populated with the student's information. And then the high school, they bring that, once they get the form notarized, they bring it to the high school, and the high school confirms, yes, I've seen this form, they've actually met that requirement. And then they mail the forms in, and once the form comes in, somebody at the college goes in and confirms that we actually have physically received the piece of paper. So even in a scenario like that, which seems kind of hard to automate, we can't eliminate the paper form requirement, but we've made it so much easier. And then Wallace-Hansville has a little bit of a different, they can do their residence forms electronically, and so we just generate all of that for them, the students fill it out. We attach that form to each registration, so that if they pull up a course, they don't have to sort of go to a separate place and figure out where the residence form is for that. It's just as easy to do it 10 times as it is one time when it's electronic. And so that helps them a lot. Yeah?
If you have multiple forms for one student,
Yeah.
and all of the forms require that they have their name, their address, their...
Yeah, we pre-fill everything that we know
So
about that
right,
student.
okay.
Yeah.
And you develop multiple forms.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, a lot of places have more than one form. If you have a residence form, then you've got an application form or permission form. Multiple forms is probably more the norm than the exception. Yeah.
So can we upload information, say from our banner admissions, so that when the student starts out, most of that information is already in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we do, and every student system has its own nuances. If you and you're on Banner, what we can do is a one-time export of your high school students, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. And then as your new students come in, they can just apply through the system, and then we integrate with Banner. So all of that then gets sent to Banner. Banner is always the system of record. Banner is always completely correct and up to date. But we can sort of provide your students with a front end, because Banner is not always the most user-friendly for high school students.
Can you do that? Can you do that backwards?
So what do you mean?
So like students will go through the application process to Banner. Like
Yeah.
regular.
Yeah.
Like you guys, like if we just wanted to use forms,
Yeah.
could you gather the information from Banner?
Yeah, we can do, and we've done that a few different ways too. We can do push the data from Banner, or we can also just give the students, the first time they interact with the system, we just ask them for their Banner student number, and then we have a common ID number between our system and your Banner system. Either one of those ways works. Yeah?
I'm sorry, what about digital signatures? So when you get parents to start filling out forms, and we actually require a signature from the parent,
Yeah.
do you handle that? If you do handle it, how do you handle it?
So most colleges, I think every college that we've worked with so far has been able to accept electronic signatures. If you can't do an electronic signature and you do need a true physical signature, we would just handle it the way we handle the residency form. And so we would fill it all out, they would print out the form. We do have, for students who, like sometimes if they can't do the permission by email, they can print out the form, they get it signed, they take a picture of it with their cell phone, and then they upload the form. And so then you've still got an image of a physically signed form. So we can do it that way too.
But you have electronic.
Can you do an approval trail as well, so parent and counselor?
Yeah, we have all
and
that. We have an
principal-
audit trail for everything that happens, and who did it, when, you know.
And so once the person approves, it can automatically notify the next person on the
Yep.
trail?
Yep. If you want them to be sequential, sometimes you want it to go to 3 people at the same time. So we do it either way.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you have 1 or 2 things that are making you a little bit crazy at the moment, and we would love to talk to you about them and see what we could do to make those easier for you. And I think we sort of done questions as we went along, but I think that takes us to the official question section. Yeah.
How do you integrate high schools with this? It seems, you started out by saying high school counselors love seeing this
Yeah.
list or that list, and how do you get them on board and do you share the administrative cost of this? Because I'm assuming that they have their own, they have their own software for registering students and everything else. So would that be just something you ask them to use as a sign-on or access, or would you have to have them in partner with that?
Yeah, so the way it normally works is we create user accounts for the high school, everybody at the high school who's going to use the system. So we don't replace the student system at the high school or any of the other things that we have, but they use this system specifically for the dual enrollment aspect of the process. Now we have had people ask us if they could use this for all of their onboarding, not just for the dual enrollment, and certainly that's something that you can do as well if the high school wanted to go down that road. We're looking at it in a couple of places. But yeah, so the counselors just have a login, they log in to the system and they see all of the stuff. Normally what they do, like for transcripts, their student system, they just go into the student system and save the transcript as a file, and then they just upload that file through dual enroll. That's how that normally happens.
Because it might be nice to even get contact with counselors, let alone, share a software. I mean, I'm sure they would get on board with it if it saved them the time and but it's like literally hard to even get them there to even understand.
Yeah. Well,
can I give a little testimonial if you don't,
So, yeah,
if you don't
please.
mind? Yes, please. Would y'all mind if I did? Okay, I met Rob and Janet actually through email and through some other networking, but we have joined with dualenroll.com and partnered with them, and they have just been so wonderful to us. They actually, we are CLTCC, which is Central Louisiana Technical Community College in Alexandria, Louisiana. Now, one of the things, I know that they are far away from us because we are in Louisiana, but I'm also in charge of doing the academic counselor partnership breakfast, okay? So how do you get all of these counselors and all of these high schools on board with you and say, this is how we're going to change things and make things better? Well, one of the things that worked well, and Rob did a satellite presentation, and it worked beautifully. And we used Perkins funds through, so everybody knows what I'm talking about here, right? Most everybody probably knows what I'm talking about here. So I did, it was like a lunch and learn kind of thing, where we shared knowledge about how we did the dualenroll.com. And Janet and Rob and I and my supervisor, Heather, did quite an extensive view of what we wanted to discuss at this counselors partnership breakfast. And so then Rob did an online, what would you call it, Rob, just a display and an online presentation of what everything would happen. And the counselors were just in awe. Some of the principals even came, and they were just like calling us back and going, oh my gosh, this is going to make our workload so much easier. Thank you. We received thank you emails for 2 weeks after doing this. And everybody, I mean, in your states, I know it's not called LOSFA, but in our state it's called LOSFA. It's the Office of Financial Aid and assistance, but in ours it's LASPA for Louisiana. So we have an agreement with LASPA, and they worked with us with that. Everything got connected, everything meshed. So all of the agreements, the electronic signatures, everything meshed beautifully. So Janet and Rob worked with us, the counselors worked with us, the people at the academic affairs office in our college, in our community systems, worked beautifully. And it has made a difference in our life.
Well, I'm glad, thank you for offering that, because I was going to ask here to give me schools that are using this so I could ask for feedback, just like what you just
and I cannot tell you, I mean, I wanted to meet them and tell them, you come here today and just tell them thank you for what they've done for us.
So no money is being exchanged under the table.
No money is being exchanged at all. They have helped us, and every time, if I send an email and say help, within an hour, somebody's emailing me back. It's either Rob or Janet. It's not a 2-day thing. It's an hour thing.
Thank you very much. We try really hard. It's back to the partnership thing, right?
It is. It's a true partnership.
So you basically just need to share the process with counselors as a
Right, and I suggest you do that. And I suggest you have them do, I don't know how far away you are, but it can be done via satellite.
Yeah, we often do, like when people decide to buy the system, we will do a kind of an introductory overview for their high schools and explain to them what the system is going to do and why it's beneficial for them before we do any sort of specific training. And so that helps get them excited and on board with the process. I'm sorry, you had your hand up for a while.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first is the Portland Community College. Portland Community College system is they have 7.5 schools essentially around the Portland metro area.
Okay.
So do all 8 schools, are they all part of dualenroll.com, or are you just talking about like PCC, Sylvania, or which is the main campus?
It's whatever sits under Beth Molenkamp's area.
Okay.
You may be a little more familiar with some of that than I even am. So I think it's everybody who is part of Portland Community College, but not like the Oregon Community College system. Although we're talking
Okay.
several other schools there.
Okay, because my second question is, so I'm on the high school side, but we partner with 8 different colleges. So I think we have about 6 community college partners and then 2 four-year school partners. So then would you be able to use it, would I be able to use this program on the high school side, or does all 8 of those schools also have to have the buy-in for us to connect with each other?
It's really driven at the college level. So what we see that happens sometimes is that it actually happened with LaRoche. One of our colleges starts to use the system, their high schools really like it, and then they mention to another college that they work with, hey, you guys should really look at this, it really makes life a lot easier. One thing we can do, which is really, let's see if I can find that slide without making this
Back to the course finder slide.
Okay. So one of the things that you can see on this course finder slide, I didn't point it out, but where we work with systems or where we work with more than one college that work with a particular high school, we actually have the ability to show students courses from more than one college in that one single interface. And so if you have several colleges in your system and you want students to be able to register, maybe they need to take courses on campus from their local community college, but they should be able to take online courses anywhere across the system. We can show them, just based on your policy, we can show them all of those courses, and then based on which course they pick, we walk them back through a registration process for that specific college. So if 2 colleges have a different process, that's okay. The students walk through the process that's relevant to the course that they've chosen. Yeah.
Do you have customers in Texas?
Texas. Not yet. We are kind of far down the road, but we're not far enough that I can name them yet. But yeah, we're talking to a couple of people.
What's average cost and?
Dreaded cost question.
Yes, and I want to go back to the banner at the.
Okay.
How does that work?
Okay. So the system is priced based on duplicated registrations. That was a conscious decision because normally you get funding for each time somebody puts their butt in the seat, you're getting paid for that in some way, whether it's, state funding formulas or the students are paying whatever. And so we tried to make it so that the cost of the system would line up really well with the money that you have coming in, as opposed to being something that you have to front a bunch of money for. It varies, so the bigger your program is, the less expensive it is per registration. The most it ever is for like the tiniest program is about $5 a registration. One of the things that we now have some pretty good data on is the fact that the number of students who register typically goes up between 5 and 10% because they don't lose their permission form and it's crumpled up in the bottom of their backpack and they miss the deadline and they didn't get to register, or their parents didn't get the check in on time, or whatever happens. And so if you think about it, if you use $100 per course as sort of an average amount of money that you would get for a course, and you get a 5% increase, which is the low end of the range, you've just covered $5 per registration just in terms of additional revenue that's generated by the system. There's also a huge cost savings aspect, obviously, because you're not paying people to chase paper forms or input data or all that kind of stuff. So it really kind of pays for itself in two ways. We have a price sheet at the table, so we can get into more details, but that's at a high level. So the banner ID?
Yeah, so you said that it could work back, not they like doing all the admission registration, but they could get other information like forms and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
For specific students.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm going to do.
Okay. Yeah. So you would just tell us how you want to configure it, which pizzas that you want us to do, and then as long as we have the ability to match that up with a student, that's pretty straightforward.
You said it's $5 per student or $5 per enrollment?
Per registration.
Per registration.
Yeah. But I always hesitate to throw that number out because that is the very highest number of, right? It goes down from there. So don't assume that it's that.
So let's say we admit 1,000 students, but ultimately only 750 of them actually register for a class. The other 250 cost prohibitive, don't meet the qualifications, etc. How do you? I need to be able to track the 1,000 that applied and not just the 750 that ultimately took the course. So how does that factor into the cost?
So you would only pay for the 750, but we have the information on the full 1,000. So if you want to run a report that says, show me everybody who's started the registration process but didn't complete the registration process, that's just a report.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, what a lot of people do is they will, like a week before their cutoff, they'll run that report so that they can follow back up with the counselors for those students and make sure that the students who intend to get through the process actually get through the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On this slide that you have here, where you have various state programs within universities, so you have an online and conference or face-to-face, but those are all priced differently.
Yep.
Do those match up here and then feed into your billing process?
Yeah, so because we pull this information out of the student system, all that pricing is already built into your student system. So just depending on which option they choose, they get the correct pricing for that option. A lot of places, courses in the high school are cheaper than courses on campus. So yeah, all that's already built in, baked in.
So back to the pricing.
Yeah.
So we would pay after students register so that we have complete amount. Plus our students register twice a year.
So what we do is we, for the first year, you just kind of give us your best estimate of how many registrations you typically get, and we price the system based on that estimate. If it turns out that you guessed high, we refund the difference back to you, so you don't kind of pay too much if you guessed high. If it turns out that you guessed low, then we just kind of consider that a cost of doing business for the first year. And then for the second year, we base it on the actual of the first year. Because, once upon a time, and I don't often admit this, but I used to be in finance. So, I understand budgets and I understand you need a firm number when you're going through your budget process. You don't need, I can't come back and say, oh, you owe me another $1,000. So we don't do that ever. Yeah?
And you mentioned banner, but how about JX? Or have Do you have any other schools that work?
Yeah, JX I don't know that I know, but so we have Banner, Colleague, and PeopleSoft are the ones that we see most often, and so we have a little bit more sort of automation for those. But for the other ones, we can just do imports and exports. And if your IT people, are willing to work with you a little bit, we have XML data formats that work with any student system. So if it's not one that we've already seen, there may just be a little bit more interaction with your IT people on the front end to get it set up. But it will work with any of the student systems.
How long does it take to set up?
So there's two parts to the process. The first is us working with you and your business office and your registrar and everybody kind of agreeing exactly how you want the thing to be set up. We have seen that take as little as a week. We have seen that take as much as 6 months. And so that's really the big swing factor is, how much agreement you already have and how clearly can you sort of articulate how you want us to build it. Once the guy in the back of the room is our flowchart guru, one of them. So we document that all for you. We lay out a flowchart. We make sure everybody reviews it and signs off and agrees this is what it's supposed to do. Once we have that documentation, it takes us between 3 and 4 weeks to just build out that configuration, test it, back and forth, make sure that your data is moving properly and all that kind of stuff. The student system integration usually takes a few weeks and typically happens in parallel with that other stuff. The other thing I should mention is that we do have schools who, for whatever reason, can't do the direct integration with their student system. Their IT people just say, no, don't even ask. And so we do have schools who use the system without that integration. In fact, I don't see Stephen, but CWI is doing that right now. And there's a little bit of manual work that has to happen because the college has to get the information from dual enroll into their student system. But it still saves you about 80% of the time because we automate all the rest of the process. So if Stephen were here, I'd get him to tell the story, but they piloted it without the student system integration in 5 high schools this past fall. And he was telling me last night, their registrar came to him and said, how fast can you get this in all of our high schools? Because this is so much easier and so much better to be doing this off of a PDF file as opposed to trying to read all these forms that students are filling out and they reverse numbers on CRN. You guys know all that stuff. So even if the student system integration doesn't work, it still is pretty beneficial, and we do have people who use it that way. I shouldn't say it doesn't work, I mean it doesn't work for your institution. It always works if you can do it.
So I wanted to make sure I have a good understanding of when you talk about registration. So we have registration in the fall and in the spring.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the same kid we're being billed for the same kid twice because he's registered 2 times?
Yeah, it's per course. So it's not per student. One student takes 3 courses, that's 3 registrations.
Oh.
Yeah. Because that's typically how you get paid, right? So we try to line it up with that. And that way we can make the per registration cost lower because if a kid only takes 1 course, we don't want to have to charge more for that one than they would otherwise. I thought I saw, we're probably close to, yeah.
I have a question back to the forms that change non-digital signature photo. Does that go to you?
It goes into your instance of the system, your database. So they're immediately accessible to anybody who is an authorized user in your system. Yeah.
And who's like I know you guys are like the real back end, but is there a person at each institution who's like the administrator? I don't know how to explain it. Like, gives user rights to like the counselor and to the staff. And
yeah. So right now we set all that stuff up for you. We actually, one of the things that we're in the process of doing is building a little bit more robust user interface into some of those administrative functions, so that would let the college do more of that stuff. Right now, you just shoot us an email and say, this person left, this person just joined us, and they need a new user account.
And so, but you set up those rights.
Yeah, right now we do.
So like our counselors don't need access to teacher stuff.
No. No, and I mean, we can still do that. We just, a lot of colleges would like to do more of it themselves, and so we're going to give them the ability to do that. Well, you guys are great. I don't want to run you into lunch because God knows I wouldn't want to interfere with food. But I really appreciate your coming, and we'll be at the table out in the main area. We'd love to talk to you about your program. Thank you. There you go.